All right, we're going to pick up where we left off last time. We're talking about the Industrial Revolution. And so we're here with this picture of a mill or a factory, and you can sort of see women and children at work. But we're going to pick up with the homework that was given, the 10-1 economic growth. And we're going to look right up here at this first question, basically the when question. Now we know where it happens. We now need to talk about when it occurs. So the time is about the early 1800s. The general time period is when it begins in the United States. It's not a hard and fast specific date, but generally a range. So the early 1800s is when the Industrial Revolution sort of comes to America. And so as we move on, we're going to talk about why it begins in New England. Now I asked for 2 reasons, but I'm going to give you 4. So I'm going to hold you responsible for what I'm covering, so make sure that you're adding to your answers. So let's take a look here. The first one is basically the idea of a power source. And there is an availability of rushing streams and rivers in New England, and that power source is going to be used to power the mills. Remember, there is no such thing as electricity, so the power source that they're going to need is going to be natural. And they're going to use the moving water to turn the mills, to turn the wheels, all those type of stuff that you guys are familiar with if you remember in ancient history. But New England was uniquely and geographically blessed with a lot of rushing streams and rivers. The second one is a little bit more complicated. That means poor soil. And you might be thinking, how is poor soil an advantage or a reason? Well, we have to think that in New England, back then as it is today, farming is not easy. The soil up there is just not as fertile as it is here, just as soil here is not as fertile as it might be in the deep south. But what is important is that hard and tough soil made a willing workforce ready to leave the plow, ready to leave the farm and head into a factory. So you have to figure out, wait a second, why are you going to leave doing farming 10, 12, 14 hours a day and go into a factory making and working 10 or 12 or 14 hours a day? Now, the pay is not that drastically better, but the one thing that is better is it's dependent work. Whereas you could toil in your farm for months and months and it just not be a great harvest. The factories and the mills that come there and the inventors provide those people up there something that they did not yet already have. So it made a willing workforce. That's an important concept. The third one is, if you're going to start working in textiles, you're going to need, your raw material is going to be cotton. So you have to have a place where large bales of cotton can be shipped in and moved to your mills and factories. And then the other part is, once you finish your textiles and you make thread and fabric and cloth and everything else, you need those same nearby ports to basically be a way for you to ship it out to the rest of the country and ultimately the rest of the world. And the last one is natural resources. So the first resource is that rushing streams and rivers, and that gonna basically last for 20 or 30 years. But then what's going to push it into the next generation is that once people come up with the idea of the steam engine technology, then you do not need to plant your the mill or the factory near a river. You can put it anywhere, okay? Because you have artificial power. And the way that you do that is through steam technology. You're basically going to boil water. You're going to control the excess pressure that's released when steam is made from boiling, and you're going to control that. But the way that you're going to do that is that you need to create heat. So the point of the resource here is that the resource that's there is going to be coal. Coal is nearby, you can ship it in, and that is going to be used to power your plants to make the steam. So those are the 4 that we should have for that second answer. I do want to just share with you just some pictures here of New England mills. You can sort of see a theme. They're all located along water. You can see these in the various pictures here. But once you go to New England, obviously some of them are still there. So yes, they date back well over 150 years of age. The first slide ends with me asking you to find 3 different inventions that deal with the textile industry. So make sure that they deal with those textiles, meaning the production of cloth or fabric. So you can't have the train down or anything like that. You're talking about textile innovations and inventions. So we go to this first one, and this is known as the spinning jenny. So as you see here, this is a link. And so what I've done is I put these short videos, they're really short, and I want you to stop the presentation, go and watch them, they're like 2 minutes long, to show you how these first early inventions are used and are so revolutionary. So the idea is you're spinning multiple lines of thread instead of one person. So you look here in this next picture, you can sort of see a man standing there with a hand crank, and he's doing multiple lines of thread here, and he's creating lots and lots of miles of thread. So that's why this invention was very important. So now that you're making thread, they go from man-powered to water-powered. That's why it's called the water frame, and this is just sort of a small mock-up of one of those. And again, just watch the little video. It just shows you how the water frame would have worked at the time. And last but not least, watch the little thing on the power loom. These were, of course, the idea of taking that thread that you had created and now weaving it into fabric. We're now going to move on to that second slide, and we're talk about the guy who develops the cotton gin. And more importantly, make sure you have a good description of what it does, and that you have a picture over here of the cotton gin. Gin, of course, is short for engine. So the guy who does it is Eli Whitney. Eli Whitney is a Yale grad. He moves down in the South. He's actually kind of like a tutor, and he notices that the idea of cleaning cotton of its seeds is a slow, laborious process. It takes a lot of time. And so he sees some of these machines, and he basically patents his own version of it called the cotton gin or cotton engine. And so if we go to the next slide, you can sort of see it basically shows you two cylinders, and they go past each other, and as they do, they pull the cotton balls, that's this right here, they call into these various little teeth. And as these go around, it pulls the fabric and the fibers apart and allows the seeds either to come up this way or sometimes drop down here in the bottom. So that's why it says clean cotton over here. It doesn't mean it's actually clean like washed. It's clean because it no longer has seeds. So the cotton gin improves efficiency. That's what it does. Your time is better spent using the cotton gin than just using your own hands. So before, slaves that had to pick cotton, if you've ever heard picking cotton, most people think of it as harvesting. It's not. It's cleaning it. It took them a whole day to get 1 pound. Now with the cotton gin, you could do 50 times that amount of work. So getting into the next question that asks about a patent, this is an example of Eli Whitney trying to protect his invention, his ideas. The patent gives him the rights to develop it and profit from it. The downside of this is going to be, obviously, now that you have an efficient way to process cotton, you need more cotton. And the only way you're going to get more cotton is to have more slaves and have more slaves planting it. So in some ways, unexpectedly, he didn't really foresee this happening, that it actually would lead to an explosion and an embedding of the idea of slavery in America and in the South. But the North is also implicated because the South is growing it, but the North is actually manufacturing it and basically processing it. I'm going to stop here, and the next screencast is going to pick up right here, talking about how that British technology that was pretty much a secret for the British to develop, how it gets its way here to the States. So this is where we're going to end.